If you will recall, when we began our voir dire, I had a lengthy instructions for you, trying to stress the importance of your duties as, at that point, potential jurors, and at this point, sworn jurors. And I just want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding and that I've emphasized enough the importance that you follow the court's instructions. So there is a recess instruction that I read to you the first break after the evidence on Monday. It's long, it's repetitive. I highlighted a few portions to abbreviate it, but still to give you the same message. I want to remind you that you must not discuss anything related to the case among yourselves or with others, and you must not allow others to discuss anything related to the case around you. I'm going to stress the word anything. I don't want you to talk about anything that happens in court, anything about the case, anything about any of the attorneys, the judge. On that first day that we met, I explained to you that you could discuss that, you know, if it came up with family and they were sort of guessing what you might be involved in, you could let them know you were summoned, you could let them know it's a Bernalillo County case, and you can talk about the schedule. You shouldn't even mention the fact that it's a criminal case. So is that instruction clear to everybody? Yes? And are you willing to abide by the court's instruction? Yes, okay. I appreciate that. And I just want to mention that although I might say it repeatedly how important that is and how important it is that you only decide the case based on what's presented in court, and how important it is that you avoid any news accounts, it really is critically important. We don't want to create a situation where we can't conclude the trial. Okay? With regard to our recess today, I know it was a lengthy one, and we've been working, and I know that that causes delay for you. Sometimes I'm not clear on how things are going to play out as far as if I know ahead of time that there's something we have to address, I can give you a break, but it's not always something that I can foresee. So at times it's necessary to excuse you from the courtroom so that the lawyers and I can discuss some matters out of your hearing. You must not speculate about what we are saying. It's the lawyer's duty to offer evidence that they believe proper and object to evidence that they believe is improper. You must be sure that all the evidence that is proper for you to hear in this case will be presented to you. Our conference is to ensure that there is no error made during the conduct of the trial, and I appreciate you understanding that. One other matter I want to discuss before we bring in the next witness. In this criminal case, neither defendant can be held responsible for the independent decisions and actions of another officer, and you shall disregard any witness opinion to the contrary. Thank you very much, and if the state has their next witness, we're ready for the witness.
State calls Detective Jeff Stone to the stand, please.
Detective Stone, I'm going to swear you in before the jury. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth and nothing but the law?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may be seated. Again, let me have you just introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Detective Jeffrey Stone.
You may proceed.
Detective Stone, good morning.
Good morning.
You were the Albuquerque Police Department homicide detective that was assigned to investigate the shooting of James Boyd on March 16th, 2014. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And APD investigated because did the shooting occur within the city limits?
Yes, it did.
So even though in the foothills within Albuquerque?
It was the...
I'll rephrase, Judge. Was it within the city of Albuquerque?
Yes, it was in the Albuquerque open space area.
Okay. We're going to talk about your investigation in a minute. Can you tell the jury something about your history with APD?
Yes, I joined the police department back in July of 2007. I successfully completed the Albuquerque Police Academy in December of 2007, where I was assigned to field services as a patrolman. What I mean by field services are uniformed police officers that you see on the streets driving around in the marked patrol units with the lights and the insignia on the side of the car. While I was in field services, I also held the position of a bicycle patrol officer. You may often see those officers in a different type of uniform, sometimes shorts, riding around on bicycles in different parts of the city. In approximately October of 2010, I tested and joined the Foothills Impact Team. The Foothills Impact Team is a generalistic detectives. They investigate all felony cases that don't have a specialized unit like armed robbery, burglary, homicide, sex crimes, things of that nature. They will typically investigate cases that involve domestic violence, kidnapping, false imprisonment, felony thefts, auto burglaries, certain white-collar crimes, things of that nature. I spent my time, and what I mean by Foothills is the area command of the Foothills within the city limits. In around November of 2012, I tested for and I went to the homicide unit where I was in the capacity of a homicide investigator. I spent my time there for about 2 years, where in about September of 2014, I left where I'm currently assigned to violent crimes, where I do investigative support.
Okay. You came into the academy and went to the academy in 2007, is that right?
July of 2007.
Did you know Defendant Sandy, who came to the academy about the same time?
Yes, he was not in my class. I had no prior law enforcement experience prior to that, and I believe Officer Sandy, who had come from state police, was going through the lateral class, but we were not connected with that class.
Okay. Did you ever work with him prior to this investigation?
A couple times. I was never actually assigned to any unit with him, but the units that he had been assigned to, there were occasions where I would need assistance from that unit, and he would be one of the detectives that would assist in the investigation.
Okay. Can you tell the jury what you did before you came to the Albuquerque Police Department?
Prior to being a law enforcement officer, I was a staff sergeant in the United States Army Infantry.
And were you deployed overseas as well?
Yes. I was part of the actual invasion of Iraq during the outbreak of the war. I did a parachute jump into Iraq in March 2003. Went through there for about a year. After that deployment, I spent a year in Afghanistan for about approximately another year.
Okay. You were in the military approximately the same time. Well, you have a similar background to Defendant Perez in this case, is that right?
I do know that he served in the United States Marines.
Okay. Did you know Defendant Dom Perez before you were asked to do this investigation?
Yes, early on in my career when I got out of the police academy, I was assigned to graveyard patrol in Foothills. He was also in the same area command. We were not in the same squad, but we spent that year up there, and what we call a bid usually takes place for a year before you can change up and go to a different shift or a different area command.
So did you know him and work with him?
Yes.
All right. Now, APD had the option after this shooting to get another police agency outside of APD to investigate these APD officers, did they not?
Objection relevant.
Goes to bias, Your Honor.
Can we close it?
Detective Stone, the Albuquerque Police Department asked you to conduct this investigation even though you knew both of the defendants, didn't they?
Yes, assigned to being the on-call homicide investigator, and at the time, per the SOP, we were responsible for investigating it.
Did that present some challenges for you in investigating fellow officers that you knew in APD?
No objection, Roberts.
4143 again.
As far as the job that needed to be done, what I had to do, and the thoroughness of my investigation, no, at the time, it did not seem like a problem.
Okay. Did you encounter some problems, particularly with APD policies on returning evidence, for example?
There were several hurdles in this investigation that I had to overcome, and evidence being one of them, yes.
Okay. Can you talk about the APD policy on whether they returned weapons used in a homicide to police officers at the time?
The current policy at that time was once the examination of the firearms used in this particular case, and what I mean the examination is when the firearms examiner does his ballistic testing of the firearm and collects all the evidence he believes he needs to complete his investigation. The firearms were then returned to the officers.
Okay. And is that the same way you would conduct a homicide investigation if it was a person rather than an officer?
Yeah, objection, relevance, 103.
Same.
Are you still in homicide?
No.
Why not?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
As far as the why not?
Yes.
If you think that you can establish some relevance, you may approach to discuss it.
All right. I'll move on to a different set of questions. You have had training on what is important evidence to collect in a homicide case, have you not?
Yes.
And in an investigation, should a homicide by a police officer be treated any differently than a homicide by a civilian, as far as collection of evidence is concerned?
It depends. It depends on what evidence is available. I mean, when you're talking about a homicide including a citizen, or a homicide including committed by a police officer, there may be different types of evidence that, say, a citizen doesn't have access to.
All right.
But the way you collect it and the importance of evidence and the way you weigh it, there's really no difference.
Okay. One of the things that you do when you're doing a homicide investigation is to take photographs, is that right?
Objection, leading.
Directing him to the area of...
Yeah, I'm going on.
Okay. Is that one of the things that you do in a homicide investigation, is take photographs?
Photographs are taken.
And what kinds of things do you photograph? And have you been trained to photograph?
I guess it should be important to say that part of the homicide team includes the criminalistics team, and they are the custodians of evidence. They are trained in actually taking police photographs. So I myself am not responsible for taking the photographs. However, we talk about what is important, what's not important. So anything that we deem necessary to collect, say a firearm or a projectile or a casing that may be on the ground or blood that may be swabbed, prior to actually touching it or doing any kind of manipulating with it, you want to make sure that you have photographs of the item in place as investigators or police officers found it.
Okay. Do you want to photograph the people who were involved in the encounter?
Yes.
Why is that?
Again, you want to try and capture best way to describe it is a moment in time, how that individual appeared, what they were wearing, how their clothes fit, hairstyle, facial hair, if there was any kind of evidence on them. You want to capture that because obviously we can't preserve that person for periods of time to bring them into court to show you how they looked. So a photograph is the best way for us to represent in court what that person looked like on the day of the incident, when officers came in contact with he or she, what they were wearing, and what maybe if they have injuries heal. So we want to try and take photographs of any injuries on people at the time that it occurred, so that way we can present it here.
Okay. Do you try to take photographs of everybody who was involved in the incident?
Typically, yes. The way I like to run it is anyone who has real intimate involvement in the particular incident. May not necessarily be just the suspect or suspects or victim or victims. It may be a witness or multiple witnesses who were intimately close to the incident or something of that nature.
How soon do you want those photographs taken?
As soon as we can.
Okay, why is that?
Again, to try and get the best and accurate representation of what that person looked like during the incident, the best that we can.
Okay, and if the person has weapons on them or armaments on them, do you want to capture that in a photograph?
Yes.
Why?
Again, if the person, whether it be a police officer or a citizen, is armed with any type of weapon, whether it be a firearm or a rifle, a rifle or a pistol or a knife or something like that, we want to make sure that when we're photographing them, we photograph them with the weapon.
Okay, and how did you ask them to have the officers that were at the scene photographed in this particular case?
Anything that they had on them during the actual incident itself, when the shooting occurred, to have them be in that clothing, and that to include their vests with all of their equipment, whatever the equipment they had on at the time. If they had a helmet on, or if they didn't have a helmet on, if they had a ball cap, whatever weapon systems they took with them. Sometimes it's not uncommon for, as a police officer, to maybe have a rifle and then something slung to the side, maybe like a beanbag, shotgun, to bring all that, and then they will be photographed with them wearing it, kind of in the condition that they had it during the incident.
And did you have them photographed just from the front?
No. Whenever the criminalistics detectives take their photographs, they will start kind of with the front of the body. Then they will do side profiles, rear profiles, and then they will also do pictures of the hands, both front and back.
Okay, so for the jury, it's photograph here, 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 and then hands. Is that the photograph?
That's correct. Typically, we'll have them hold up the hands so you can see the front of the hands, and then the back of the palms of the hands. And then oftentimes they will take close-ups of the officer's hands, just the hands themselves, kind of stretched out like this, both the back of the hands and the palms.
Okay, how did you decide which of the people at the scene were important to photograph?
Again, when I get on scene, I have a lot to assess. There's a lot of things that go into just trying to figure out what happened. So for me to determine who needs to be photographed, I need to determine who was on scene and who was kind of up close and personal to the incident itself. In this particular instance, the shooting. Anyone who witnessed the shooting, saw the shooting, and was possibly engaged kind of in the incident itself, or who may have had contact throughout the entire incident, was photographed.
Okay. And did you photograph the officers on what I think the term is perimeter, is what the police use?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what a perimeter is, please?
Yes. So to kind of put it in terms that you would understand it, police officers are trained to form perimeters around a certain area for several different reasons. An initial perimeter may be set up when a developing situation is happening within the city, typically a developing possible hazardous or violent situation within the city. A perimeter is established for several reasons. One, to contain whatever violent situation is going on, i.e. a violent person or persons, or maybe to contain a house if a violent person or a violent situation is occurring in a house or building. So it's to kind of contain that so it doesn't spill out further into the city or into maybe an adjacent neighborhood or something like that.
Okay, let me stop you just for a second. Because when you say contain, you mean you make a circle so the person in the middle can't get away.
That's one
can't
reason.
Get out. Okay, all right. And what is the other reason?
Another reason is to keep uninvolved people out. It's not uncommon to have people going about their everyday business, just happen upon a scene, a developing scene, and they don't realize it's a scene, and they will sometimes walk towards the area that may be dangerous. So the perimeter is formed to, and then officers are trained to lock down what we call that perimeter to keep the people out for their own safety and the safety of everybody involved.
So did you film all of the 19 officers who were out there at the time?
Film?
Or
Photograph?
photograph, that's what I meant.
Yes.
Okay. Did that include the defendants, Mr. Perez and Mr. Sandy?
It did.
Okay. Did you also do something about cataloging the weaponry that each person who was out there had on them?
Yes. Again, I personally did not do the cataloging. However, the criminalistics detectives will catalog each piece of evidence that they are collecting, including the firearms or anything that has to do with the firearms.
Okay. And were all of those photographed, and were all the firearms photographed?
Yes.
And were the rounds of ammunition removed and counted as well?
Yes. As per what the criminalistics detectives do, whenever they receive a firearm, they will, if it is not rendered safe, they will render it safe. And they will take photographs of, say, if there's a bullet in the chamber, they will take a photograph of what bullet was in the chamber, and they will log that. And then they will download, say, in a rifle magazine, any ammunition that was in the magazine itself, and then they will take a photograph of that.
Okay, let me hand you what's been marked first as State's Exhibit 32A. Can you identify that for me, please?
Yes, it is a photograph of Detective, at the time, Detective Keith Sandy.
And was that taken the night of the shooting, right after the shooting occurred?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, I move 32A. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
A is admitted. 32A is admitted.
Judge, if you could turn on the Elmo, please. Okay, I'm trying to get this all the way on the screen here. I'm trying to, will it go out? Up. Okay, that is not it. I think that's maybe as far as it will go there. As far as it will go down, I think. Okay. Is this how Keith Sandy was dressed when he showed up at the scene out there in the foothills?
Yes.
Okay, can you go walk through, and actually, Detective Stone, on that computer screen that you have, you can actually touch things and it will mark where you're touching so the jury can see like a little X. Can you go through head to toe and tell me what it is that we're seeing as far as all the devices on Mr. Sandy?
Okay, sure. So what you're seeing is Detective Sandy at that time was dressed in a ball cap, and he had on a long sleeve shirt and blue jeans. The type of vest that you're seeing on him, which is this thing right here, it's a type of tactical police vest that includes, inside of it you can put bulletproof plates. Attached to this type of vest, it has a series of attachments where you can put magazine pouches, radio pouches, different type, like holsters, different types of stuff. Whatever you need, it'll be there readily accessible for you. So on this side right here, I believe you see his sidearm, which is attached to the vest.
When you say a sidearm, is that a handgun?
It's a handgun,
okay.
Correct. It has up here you can see Albuquerque police patch. Just below that is what you're seeing is it's a Scorpion lapel camera. This device right here, although it doesn't look like he's wearing it on his head, is part of it hooks up to a police radio, and you can hook up a head device with a microphone, so that way you don't have to keep keying up your hand mic and talking through the actual radio itself. You can put the radio away and just talk through that. So that's the device that you're seeing there. Right here, what you're seeing it's a magazine pouch, this part, and protruding from the magazine pouches are actual magazines for the handgun.
Okay, and a magazine is something that contains extra bullets?
That's correct. So for anyone who doesn't understand how a firearm works as it relates to a semi-automatic, in order to get bullets into the mechanism itself, to the gun itself, you have to insert what's called a magazine, and it has bullets stacked in series, and every time you fire, it will eject the casing and pick up a new bullet.
Okay, let me stop and hand you 32B and 32C1, and can you tell me if those, if that,
Your Honor.
well, identify what that is, please.
Objection approach.
Detective Stone, can you tell the jury what 32B is first?
It's a 1911 style handgun with a picture of a bullet, the bullet that I presume came out of the chamber, and a magazine that came out of the magazine well with the bullet still loaded into the magazine.
And whose firearm was that?
Keith Sandy's.
How do you know that?
Based on when the criminalistics detectives collected it and they put it in the report.
And you were directing all of this, overseeing the entire investigation, is that right?
That's correct. Myself and the criminalistics team, although I may not be present for everything, we periodically will come together, confer notes, and do what we call a debrief together. So we all, I know what evidence they've collected, what they're seeing, and as far as to what I'm seeing and hearing in my investigation.
Okay, and no doubt in your mind that that was Defendant Sandy's gun?
Correct.
All right, and how about Exhibit 32C? What is that?
32C or 32C1?
C1, Judge. Excuse me.
32C1 is a picture of 3 extra 1911 magazines that are silver in color with the bullets taken out of the magazines and lined up in a row next to the prospective magazine that they were taken out of.
Okay, and when you were on this picture that you have for the jury up here circling the magazines, can you show on Defendant Sandy where those magazines were?
Right here.
Okay. Your Honor, I would move 32B and 32C1 into evidence.
Can I brief you before the other witness on that matter? I'm going to object to lack of foundation at this point, but I'd like to be able to ask him just a couple of questions.
A few questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Detective.
Morning.
Detective, you didn't actually take those pictures, did you?
I did not.
And you were not there when the criminalistic specifically took the picture of that gun watching him do that, is that right?
I was not.
And you weren't there when he specifically took the picture of those bullets either, were you?
No, I was not.
Okay, the only reason you say that you think that's Keith Sandy's gun is because the criminalistic told you that that's the picture he took of Keith Sandy's gun, right?
That's correct.
You have no independent personal knowledge that, in fact, that was Keith Sandy's gun that he was wearing, do you?
That's correct.
The same with the bullets, right?
That's correct.
So basically, you're just completely relying on somebody who gave you those pictures and marked them and said, these are Keith Sandy's, right?
Relying on the criminalistics detective, that's correct.
But you don't have any knowledge of whether or not that's accurate or not, other than just relying on him, right?
I wasn't there to collect it, so. Correct.
That's all the questions I have, Your Honor. My objection remains a lack of foundation.
All right, move them into evidence.
May I have you?
Okay, let's go back to our photograph that we have on the screen here. Can you go through and tell me what else we're seeing on Defendant Sandy there?
I believe I left off with the magazines that I had just X'd off.
Yep.
There is some other equipment on the sides here that I'm not too sure of what they are. I do know that at one point Detective Sandy had a what we call a flash noise diversionary device, also referred to as a flashbang. And I believe that there was a pouch on his tactical vest. I don't know where that is. So going to the photograph now, you see the rifle here that's slung down. That is the rifle that Detective Sandy had on him at the time. What you're seeing right here is a type of magnified optic attached to the rifle that he would look through, or one would look through to sight in the scope.
Okay, when you say magnified optic, is that the scope itself?
Yes, it's a scope.
Okay.
Pistol grip of the rifle, trigger, magazine. He has a forward hand grip right here, and you can't really see the rifle too well down below here.
Let me move it up for you. But now, if you tap at the right corner of your screen, right top corner, hopefully it will disappear. Did you guys figure out how to do this the other day? Okay. It's not working. Let's see.
Upper left?
Upper right-hand corner. Well, it's not working today, I don't think, Judge. Is there a way Your Honor can make it disappear from up there?
I don't have. Sherry, did you observe yesterday?
Okay. We got it going yesterday.
The one corner changes the color, and the
Right.
other corner, the left changes the color.
Okay.
Whatever you're doing now changes the color.
is working. What I suggest, Jerry, is you just take a shot bottom left.
Lower left.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Detective Stone. Okay. So we were talking about the rifle. Can you talk about the other things that are on that rifle there?
Yes. Right here is where you're going to see the tip of the barrel. Has a flash suppressor on it.
What is a flash suppressor?
When you fire these rifles, when the bullet comes out of the barrel, it's not always noticeable to the person shooting the rifle, but to other people you'll see a kind of a bright flash. It's more noticeable as the light goes down, and it'll also be very loud and kind of what kicks up the rifle. So they put flash suppressors on there for a couple reasons to help reduce noise, reduce the flash, and it can also at times help with recoil of the rifle, depending on whichever one they want to put on there.
Okay. Anything else on that rifle that the jury needs to know about?
It's hard for me to see.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the form of the question.
Okay. Anything else that's important for this case, Detective, about the rifle?
Same objection, Your Honor. Anything else that's important to the case?
Is there any...
I was going to sustain that, but I still think there's a question.
Okay. What else can you tell us about the rifle, Detective?
If I could real quick just see the photo. It's kind of hard to see on the screen here.
Okay. Oh, see the photograph itself. Okay.
Now you can put it back.
Okay, let me put the rifle that way so you can see it sideways.
Okay, so he's got something attached right here. It's in this photo. It's hard for me to see what it is. I'll have to see a different one, but I believe that might be the flashlight. But there is another additional piece of equipment attached right there.
Okay. And let me ask you about as you go up his body here. What is this black? Is this black stuff here underneath what you said was his vest?
So it's an additional piece of ballistic vest, and it appears to be the standard issue ballistic Kevlar vest that is issued to all patrol officers. So that is what, when you see a uniformed officer in full uniform, and you will notice that he has a bulletproof vest underneath his shirt, that's what that is.
Okay. Did all of the 19 officers up there have bulletproof vests on?
Yes.
And so this vest, this yellow vest, you said has the ability for what to go inside of it?
Plates. There's actual armored plates. So the black vest that is issued to police officers has a, it's like a cutout type of Kevlar blanket that you put, kind of covers your chest and abdomen area, and it's a woven material referred to as Kevlar. The actual plates that go into the additional body armor on the tactical vest is what I refer to as hard plates, and there's I don't know what the material of these plates consist of, but they're usually a harder, firm plate, and you usually wear those. Well, not usually. You will wear those because it offers you an extra layer of protection that maybe the soft body armor, which is the woven Kevlar, does not protect from higher caliber bullets, like maybe a rifle shot or something like that.
Okay, and Defendant Sandy had both kinds on?
Yes.
Let me hand you what's marked as State's Exhibit 32C2. Do you recognize that photograph, and can you identify that for the jury?
C2, it's a picture of rifle magazine 223 by itself with the bullets taken out of it.
Okay, and is that, can you identify whose rifle magazine that was?
Again, based on the report, it appears to be Detective Sandy's.
Okay, and why in the investigation did you take the bullets out of the magazine?
Objection to the form of the question. There's no evidence that he took them.
Let me rephrase the question. Why were the bullets taken out of the magazine, Your Honor? Excuse me. Detective Stone, I don't get to question the judge. So Detective Stone, why were the bullets taken out of the magazine?
As I stated before, you're going to want to take the bullets out of the magazine, one, to count how many bullets were in the magazine and to see what type of bullets were in the magazine and what condition they are, the color of the brass. In the event that, say, if there's multiple shooters, they may have different, sometimes there's silver brass or silver bullets as opposed to brass colored.
Okay. And which weapon was fired in this case by Defendant Sandy of all the weapons that you've showed us on this picture?
The only weapon that was fired was the rifle.
Okay. And can you show where that magazine picture came from? Where the magazine is, that is the picture that is 32.
Objection, lack of foundation, Your Honor, at this time. Just trying to say that magazine was that, she does not lay the foundation for that through this witness, unless I get a chance to provide the witness.
Sure. Where is the magazine on this rifle?
It's right here.
Okay. Did you have to know the information about how many bullets were in the magazine to be able to write your report?
Yes, it is important.
Okay. And what type of bullets are those in this magazine?
I can't tell what type of bullets these are.
Okay. Was that placed in your report, what type of bullets they were?
It's in the criminalistics report.
Okay. Do you know the difference between soft point bullets and hard
Yes.
point bullets? And can you tell me whether those are soft point bullets?
They appear to be soft point.
Can you explain to the jury what the difference is between soft point bullets and regular bullets?
Yes. So hard point bullets are designed to kind of penetrate through objects without deforming considerably and stopping. Soft point is there to, when it penetrates an object, it kind of mushrooms out, and because now it no longer has that cylindrical look to it, it will, the inertia of the bullet going in will stop. And the reason for the soft point bullet and the reason that we carry them as police officers is because we do have concerns of over-penetration. So what I mean by that is if I have a threat in front of me, an armed subject or something of that nature, and I have to shoot that subject, I don't want a bullet passing through him and continue going and then hitting somebody else, because I'm still responsible for that shot. So that is the point of the soft point. Whereas the hard tip ammunition, there is a concern that it could penetrate through the threat or the person and continue going and possibly hit an unintended person.
Which one of the bullets does more damage to the human body?
Depending on shot placement, either one can do considerable damage. Obviously, the one that will mushroom out can create a substantial wider wound track and cause more damage.
Okay, Your Honor, I would move 32C2.
Sir, lack of foundation, can I voir dire the witness?
If it's the same issues, Judge, I'll wait till the criminalistics department. It's withdrawn at this point. We'll lay a foundation through the criminalistics expert. Were pictures taken of Defendant Perez as well?
Yes.
Let me hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 37AI, or A1. Can you tell me what that is, please?
It is a picture of, at the time, Officer Perez.
And was that taken immediately after the shooting?
Within a couple hours.
And does that fairly and accurately depict how he was dressed when he confronted James Boyd?
It does.
Okay, Your Honor, I would move 32A into evidence, or 37A into evidence.
At some point, I'd like to address the exhibits we were given and then the exhibits that we referred to, because there seemed to be inconsistency, but I have no objection to that particular photograph being admitted into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
That's correct, Judge. And let's start, since I can't get the whole photograph on here, Detective Detective Stone. Let's start from the top. You identified this as Defendant Sandy and how he was dressed at the time of the shooting of James Boyd. Why don't we start from the top, and why don't you go through with this picture the same way you did with the other picture, what we see there in that picture.
Sure. So Detective Perez, as you see, is dressed differently than Officer Perez is dressed differently than Detective Sandy was that night.
Okay, and first of all, why is that?
Detective Keith Sandy was assigned to the Repeat Offender Project, which is referred to as the ROPE team at the time, and that is a plainclothes unit. So the detectives in that unit would have been dressed in t-shirt, shorts, pants, whatever. Officer Perez was a SWAT officer assigned to the tactical unit. Therefore, they have a standard uniform that they will dress into when they come to scenes. So what you're seeing here is what you would see if you happen upon a SWAT call-out and you see tactical officers walking around. You'll see them dressed similarly in this type of uniform.
Okay, or if they show up to your house, that's the SWAT team that showed up to your house.
Yes, they are uniquely identified as SWAT team members.
Okay. And on the back of Defendant Sandy, before we move on to this, was there some identification on his back that told that he was with ROPE?
Yes, there was a placard that said police, and below it was ROP.
Okay. So that when we see that in photographs or video, that ROP indicates the Repeat Offender Program?
Repeat Offender Project, that's correct.
Okay. But go back to Defendant Perez. Can you start from the top and tell me what is on his head, first of all?
Sure, it's a helmet, and now the lines are in black, so I don't know how to switch them back to blue.
Okay.
Lower right corner.
Okay. So what's on his head is a ballistic helmet. I don't know what I did now.
Green, exit. Okay, how's that? Okay, well, let's just stick with black since
Okay.
we're something that drawn.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So on top of his head is the helmet, and that's what are issued to SWAT officers. What you're seeing in front of his mouth is a headset. All SWAT officers, when they dress out, will have headsets for radio communication, so they will be able to, again, talk without having the radio up to their mouth. And also the headsets, only they can hear the radio transmissions going out. So if you were to stand in front of the SWAT officer, you would not be able to hear what's being put out over the radio. On the left side of his helmet is a camera. It's a helmet camera, and the make and model of the camera escapes me right now.
Can you put a circle around that?
Sure.
And that's the camera that recorded the video that's involved in this case?
That's correct.
All right. Did he also have night vision goggles when he arrived at the scene?
Yes, if you bring the photograph down.
Okay. I don't think I think
Oh,
that's...
it's cropped off, but
Okay.
he does have night vision on. The attachment you see in the center of the helmet right there is the actual mount for the night vision goggles. And the mount is always affixed to the helmet. And the reason it's there in permanent place is so you can actually attach the night vision on and take them off. And then the night vision goggles themselves will have another arm attached to them which clips into the mount, and then you can actually flip the night vision down onto your eye so you can use it, and when you don't need it, you flip it up and it just sits on top of the head.
Okay. And he had night vision goggles on that night when he went up the mountain?
That evening, that's correct.
All right. What are night vision goggles?
Night vision goggles are, it's a device used that amplifies the ambient light around you immensely. I used to know the percentage of light, but in layman's terms, what it will do is it will use all of the available light around. If you're up in the mountains, the only available light is the starlight. It will amplify the starlight so much that it will actually create an image through the goggles so you can actually see what's out in front of you. And the reason for that is if you were to walk into a dark forest, you would keep bumping into trees because you can't see anything. What the night vision goggles allow you to do is to actually walk forward and see the objects that are in front of you.
And in lay terms, it lets you see in the dark.
Yes.
Okay. Does this let officers see in the dark?
It lets the user see in the dark.
All right. And then going down below the neck, what else do we see on Defendant Perez?
So again, you're going to see a similar in style type of tactical vest with the number that's probably unique to his call sign right up here. I do know through my experience that SWAT officers' call signs start with a 7 and then have numbers after it, like 710, 714, 715. Underneath that, you will have the Albuquerque Police Department patch, and again, more equipment pouches that are affixed to the vest itself. Here you can see an extra .223 magazine for a rifle, another one right here with an Albuquerque police badge velcroed to it. The scissors you're seeing are like the ones that you would see that the paramedics have, the safe scissors. There's some other pouches over here. I don't know, I can't see what's in them. And again, right here what you're seeing in on the, as you look at it, the right shoulder area of the vest itself is again the headphone attachment for the radio. So here you're going to see the rifle that he was carrying at the time during the shooting.
And before we get to the rifle, did he have a sidearm as well?
He did. You can't really see it that well in view in this photo.
Where is that located in this photo?
It appears to be part of a drop-down holster right here by his leg.
All right. And was that sidearm photographed separately as well?
It was.
And just like with the other, with Defendant Sandy, was the ammunition removed and photographed separately to see how many rounds of ammunition he had?
Yes, the criminalistics detectives did that.
And the same on this rifle that you have, where is the magazine on that rifle?
Right here, and it has a little red triangle on it.
And was the magazine pulled out, photographed, and were the rounds that were left counted?
It was.
Okay. Which one of these weapons was the only one fired that night?
Again, the rifle.
Okay. If you can zero that out, I'm going to turn the rifle sideways and then talk about the rifle. If you can do whatever you did again. There you go. Okay, that's great. Okay, let's talk about this rifle and turn it sideways so you can describe this rifle to the jury, please.
Sure. I'll start with the rear of the rifle, the buttstock. This is what we refer to as the buttstock. It's the portion of the rifle that you will actually put in the pocket of your shoulder, whichever your firing side is. It's attached to the spring tube that will force the bolt back into action when you fire. You have the upper and lower receiver right here. That's the part of the rifle that contains the actual firing mechanisms, the trigger mechanisms, the bolt carrier group, the firing pin, so forth. You have the trigger down here. You have the pistol grip. You have the magazine that is injected into the magazine well. You have up on top of here, this item right here, is what's called an aim point. It's a red dot aim point. It's what is used to actually sight the rifle system in on the target.
Okay, and let me stop you with the aim point. Was the aim point actually magnified or not magnified?
This particular aim point itself is not magnified. It's just a red dot when you look through it.
Okay, and can you tell the jury how that works then?
Yes. So the way a red dot aim point will work is when you actually look through the sight of the rifle, which is this sight that I'm referring to. When you look through the lenses, obviously you can see through the lenses much like if you were looking through a scope or binoculars or something like that, although it's not magnified. And within that is going to be a red dot. That red dot is what you use to actually put on the target and where you want the bullet to go. And it is sighted into the system. It's what we call zeroing the weapon, zeroing the sight system. And there's knobs on top of the aim point sighting system itself that allow you to make minor adjustments to the red dot when you're zeroing your rifle in order to get the red dot on target. And what I mean by on target is point of aim, point of impact when you're zeroing it.
Okay, and let me stop you for a second. 'Cause when you're using that scope, do you put that right up to your eye like this?
No, you have some type of eye relief. And it's different for every person.
Okay, and eye relief, I'm not sure the jury understands.
Yeah,
what
I'm sorry, I was going to explain that.
Okay.
What that means is it's going to be the distance between the rear of the sighting system itself to where your eye is. So say this is the sighting system and the weapon's up like this, and I'm looking through it like this, and wherever I'm comfortable with being able to see through this sighting system and being able to focus on the red dot.
Okay, and are you trained to keep both eyes open when you're doing that?
It's on an individual base. Certain people are comfortable with firing both eyes open. I myself, I do not fire that way.
Okay, and so when this red dot scope is here and I want to hit something, what do I do as far as trying to place the red dot on that person?
Again, we're trained certain areas of the person, of the body that you aim for when you're shooting. So we'll take, for instance, upper center mass of the body, and when you bring the rifle up, when you're ready to actually fire, and I should step back a little bit, when you have the rifle and when you're walking around with it, you don't carry the rifle like this, you're not looking through the sighting system. Because one, that it impairs your ability to see what's going around, because now you have things in front of your eyesight that you can't see. So you will keep the rifle at a low ready, is what we refer to it, where it's it's kind of up, but it's not all the way up. And you keep it in that position until a threat is presented and you're going to be ready to fire. And then what you do is you bring it up, and that's when you're going to look through the sighting system. And that's where I'm talking about you're going to get that proper distance from your eye to the rear of the sight itself. And then that's when you're actually going to put the dot on. When I was talking about, let's talk about the high center of mass, and we're trained to put it like right there. And that is what you're going to be putting the dot on. Now, even though the person can't see that dot, and that's how, layman's terms, that's how it works.
Can you describe how the red is when you said right there, where you're hitting the body?
Wherever I'm putting the dot on. So say if I'm going to
I think all she needs is
Right
where
in the
you're
chest.
pointing is in the middle of your chest, where your tie is, sort of right in the middle
Exactly.
of your tie. Okay, all right.
if that's where I want to sight in, if that's where I want to shoot the person.
Okay, and is this sighting system a faster way to sight in something?
It can be, yes.
Because all I need to do is turn my gun and put the red dot on you, and then that's where I shoot.
Yes.
Okay. You said the red dot is not visible on the person, you know, when we see the TV shows.
It's not a laser.
Okay, but inside the scope, what do you see?
You see just a red dot.
Okay. Bjorn, I think this may be a good stopping point to let the jury go have lunch.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a little bit of a later lunch break, but I'm going to give you an hour or so. Until we come back at 1:35, the first board jury assembly room. All the same instructions apply. Critical, they cannot discuss the case with anyone or anything involved in the case or any of the people involved in the case. I'm very pleasant. Please stand.
Thank you.
And we'll mark the latest note at 4th of delivery.
Okay.